Hello and welcome to session 3. We're going to be looking at unit 2 now. So let's get started. We'll just share my screen. And here we are. Last week we looked at leadership and management in adult care. So we just looked at some theories about transactional transformational leaders. This time we're looking about team leadership in adult care. So let's just start off by having a look at this. So adapting leadership styles reflect different strategies and cycles within the team's development. So it looks at fostering positive working environments through various strategies. And here you've got Tuckman's theory. So we've got the forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. And Tuckman suggests that we need to go through these stages to build our teams. So the forming stages, during this stage, we've got newly formed leaders. They adopt a more authoritarian leadership style. They need structure. They look for direction within the team. They're getting to know each other. They're kind of settling in, getting to learn their roles. After that, it moves to storming, because at this stage, conflict is going to happen. People start to understand what's going on. They understand people's levels of authority. And then after that, we move from storming into norming. Norming looks at establishing those shared values. It becomes a bit more democratic. The leaders have managed to get an opportunity to get a sense of their duty, and everything kind of settles down. And after that, we get to performing, meaning we're more highly functioning. We can empower our team members a bit more. And then we move to the adjourning stage, which is when the project or task comes to an end, leaders may switch from coaching to an assertive style. Now, what's important about Tuckman's theory is the fact that it's normal to go through these stages, and that will only happen with continuity of care, or continuity of staff. So when we think about health and social care, we constantly have this different staff every time, constantly changing. So it's very hard to achieve this. So we need to look at methods on how we can go through Tuckman's theory a little bit quicker within social care. 1.2 looks at establishing trust and accountability within our teams. Establishing trust and accountability is essential for creating a cohesive workforce, looking at stronger relationships, taking into account those roles and responsibilities. So let's look at how we can establish some trust and accountability within our teams. First of all, we as team leaders, managers, need to act as role models. We need to lead by example, and we need to demonstrate what trustworthiness and honesty looks like. So in other words, we're not talking about other members of staff. We're being professional about the way we talk. We have conversations behind closed doors. We don't do things on the shop floor, as it were. And we need to be constant in that approach. Equally, we need to think about our communication strategies on how we communicate to people. So we're kind of sharing ideas. We're getting people to think, ask to collaborate. Rather than being that dictator, we try and get people to come up with the idea and get them to the buy-in. And we need to model that behaviour for your team members to mimic us, because ultimately we're in positions of trust because we believe that we have the right values and skills to lead this team. And ideally, we want the team to adopt the same values and beliefs we do. So effective communication is about fostering an open and transparent communication, encouraging team members to share ideas and concerns and criticism. So think about your communication strategy. How do people know what's going on from shift to shift? How do we know what the updates are? Are you bombarding people with too much information? Is it too much? Is it too little? Is it in their preferred style? Is it not in their preferred style? Is everything just left to the written format, or is there verbal format? So thinking about your effective communication strategy is key here. Active listening, so pay close attention to what team members are saying, show empathy towards their points of view. So again, a lot of the feedback that we tend to get in social care is more tiredness and burnout. When you actually listen to what the problem is, if we did our root cause analysis when a member of staff comes to us, you can normally hear they're just fed up. They're fed up with either a new member of staff who's not performing, so Tuckman's theory. They're fed up because somebody hasn't followed a policy and procedure, or they're fed up because they're just tired and they're overworked. We've all been there. We've all been there. So, and I think to normalise our positions in leadership, people need to understand that we have been there. You know, you have not got to become a leader of a care service if you haven't done the groundwork. So it's important for you to show empathy, you know. And I tend to say to a lot of people, especially when they're talking about the pressure and everything, it is about that emotional resilience. Excuse me. Just on resilience. So we talk about resilience and we talk about being a model of strength. And that's because we've been there. We've done the full-time job. We've done the full-time study. You've probably done your level 2, your level 3. You're now doing your level 5. You've done all your mandatory training. You've got a home life and family as well. So just having that compassion, that empathy, we've all had bad days. So just actively listening, pay close attention to what they're demonstrating, what they're saying, and demonstrate that you appreciate their input. You know, thank you for bringing that to me. I can see that you're looking tired. You know, what is it that I can do to help you? And it may be that you can't help them, but at least you've heard. Delegate responsibilities. This one is key. Ensure that team members and task and responsibility match their skills and capabilities. So don't be the manager that says, I have to do it. Nobody else does it, whether I do it. I have to do everything. Because actually you disempower your team. And not only that, if the staff say that you're going to do it, why would they do it? So delegate responsibility, make sure that you're not over-tasking people, but do push people, because obviously we want to feel that we're being pushed. We want to feel that we're being driven to achieve our absolute best, but have those conversations with people about roles and responsibilities. If we think about it, we have our care champions within the homes. We have trainer positions within the homes. There's lots of other roles and responsibilities that can happen to upskill staff, to give them a bit more accountability, to make them feel more part of a leadership team. Respect and empowerment, obviously treat every team member with respect and provide opportunities for them to make discussions and contributions. So obviously when you have team meetings, put that agenda up with any other business and say to people, look, I want you to contribute. Send out those staff feedback forms. Make sure that you are hearing everything that needs to happen to promote that ownership, really. Clear expectations. Set clear expectations and achievable goals at the start of your shifts. And make sure you follow them up and make sure you have some kind of reward and recognition. And that might just be thank you, great job today, guys. I know you've worked really hard. Whatever it is, just show that you are setting goals and you are monitoring those goals. Most leadership fails when you set goals and you don't monitor them. You don't give some feedback. You don't praise or recognise that achievement's been done, which looks at then the regular check-ins. So just look at progress towards those goals, you know. So if you've said to Bob, right, Bob, I want you to do the ground floor today. Mary, you're doing the top floor. Sue, you've got the upper floor. I want everybody washed, dressed and ready by 11 o'clock-ish, you know, give or take. Then go out on the floor and see how they're progressing at midpoint, because that will give you an idea whether or not they're going to achieve the targets that you've set them. Which then moves into feedback and recognition. So obviously give that positive feedback, recognise and help people forward. And I've never been one, you know, I've never been one that said you must have your break at this time, because I think that's quite archaic, especially in health and social care. I tend to say to people, look, you've got X amount of time for your break. If you need to take 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, just do it, because I'd rather you just take breaks little and often than in one block. You know, as long as the floor's covered and you're not being irresponsible, then that's fine. And it's those kind of flexibilities, those reasonable adjustments which really help, because if you've got somebody that is a smoker, not that we're obviously promoting smoking, because we don't, but you know, if you have a smoker, then for them, they might appreciate little and often breaks, because it's enough for them to get some fresh air. and to promote their habit. Problem solving. So again, when we go out and we go, how are we achieving our targets, and we realise that they're behind, we can ask them, okay, I can see you're slightly behind target. What is it you can do, or what is it you need to kind of pick this back up a bit? And it may be that they say, oh, well, look, you know, I know upstairs is done a bit quicker. Can we swap, or whatever it is? You know, maybe Bob needs help because one of his service users is always quite challenging. So we need to think about what we can do to help problem solve there. Looking at that continuous support and then celebrating achievements. So lots of ways that we can establish trust and become good role models there. 1.3 looks at building and maintaining team's commitment to service that value is consistent and demonstrates own commitments to and expresses own values. So again, demonstrating your personal commitment looks at you as a leader showcasing and leading by example your values and your daily actions and setting the behaviours and the standards for your team. So making sure that you align to your organisation's values because you are the leader. And regardless of what happens, you are the gatekeeper for that. So making sure that you uphold those values all the time. Active participation, so engage actively in the service's interest, projects and activities. You know, I've always in leadership gone on the floor. I've always helped out if the staff are short, but with a clear expectation that I'm not part of, I'm not part of the numbers. I'm doing this because I'm part of the solution, not part of this team, because they have to understand that as a leader, I don't sit behind a desk all day long. I deal with all the compliance issues and all of the leadership stuff. However, I don't want to see a team struggle. So again, it's that fine balance between, oh, you just sit in your office, what do you know, to going out on the floor and helping. And one of the things that I always used to do every day, I'd come in and do a floor walk, so making sure that, all my service users are happy, all my staff are happy. I know that everyone's alive, and again, I may do some compliance stuff. I may walk into the medication room, just do a medication check or whatever. So I walk the floor as if I'm part of that team. So looking at work ethics, demonstrating strong work ethics and enthusiasm for our role. So again, when we do team meetings, when we do handovers, it is the case of trying to be motivational. So when I sat in handovers and I know one team's trying to leave, one team's trying to go, just trying for the exit team to leave on a high and the incoming team to start on a positive. And that might be little positive statements, that might be mantras, that might just be, a few words of wisdom. Or it could just be some gratitude and reward and recognition. But it's really important to start and end your shifts with some kind of statement if you're in the building. Transparency, obviously being about being open and honest. Yes, we have an open door policy. Can be a bit confusing because it doesn't mean the door's open all the time. But ultimately, allowing that transparency. So if we've had complaints, I'd sit at the staff meeting and say, look, last week we had several complaints. These were the complaints. This is what we did about it. So that's the kind of open honesty that we need, because people need to feel that they're being heard and listened to. You don't want to be that service where people go, oh, there's no point telling my manager if they don't do anything about it, because it's a dreadful situation to be in. You want to be part of that inspirational team where they go, yeah, no, I can report anything to my manager. They listen, they hear me. Express your vision, so be clear in your communication. And again, be clear and concise. Use storytelling. It's a great way to win people around. I can tell you about a time when I dealt with this a couple of years ago, or I can tell you about a time when I dealt with that. Just sharing some of those stories in handovers and meetings is really useful because it normalizes us and it shows them that we've been there. It shows them that we understand and that we can achieve what we need to achieve. Visual representation. So again, Visual representation works really well, so that could be charts, graphs, presentations, infographics. Infographics are great, probably quite advanced. Don't necessarily think you need to use this in healthcare as much, but you know, they're there. But ultimately, when we look at what we're achieving, even on a monthly basis, you could have a summary of how many care hours have been given, how many hours of worked staff have been given, you know, how many complaints you've had, how many safeguardings have been raised, how many compliments you've received. And this kind of data, whilst it seems irrelevant, is really relevant, because your key business indicators, your key performance indicators is what you're doing. People don't realize how much is going on unless you tell them. So how is anyone going to know how many hours of care you're doing if you've not told them? You know, how many hours of staff worked there are unless you tell them. So you have all the data there. It's not difficult to collate data or reports, but it's definitely worthwhile. You know, how much staff training did we do this month? How many medication errors have we had? So just giving staff visual representations could be really useful. Connect to impact, so emphasize the positive impacts of the service. So again, looking at those compliments rather than complaints, looking at what's going well rather than not what is going well, but obviously having areas for quality improvement and continual development. An open dialogue, encourage open discussion to ask questions. So again, with those infographics, with those targets, you could be saying, well, why do we think this number is so high? What can we do to bring it down? Or if the numbers are low, this number's quite low, what can we do to bring it up? And that could be regarding staffing, that could be regarding your E&D, your equality and diversity data, that could be to do with number of complaints or safeguards or whatever it is. You need to be able to have the data there to be able to monitor it. Nurture team commitments, so recognition and appreciation, obviously acknowledging people, reinforcing positive behaviour, development of opportunities, prior learning and growth, so looking at how you can remove that glass ceiling effect, looking at that roles and responsibilities, trying to give more accountability, feedback loops, and making sure that staff are involved in 360 feedback. So if you're doing staff surveys, if you're doing customer service, if you're doing stakeholder surveys, giving that feedback back. Participation in decision making, so involving the team there when decisions are being made, and regularly checking in. So lots of things we can do to build team commitment. When we look at developing and implementing and reviewing strategies to support positive value-based culture in teams, again, we are looking at a very similar set of principles or ideology of working. So developing strategies looks at identifying core values, involving the team, translating those values into actions. So thinking about your mission statement, your values, and your beliefs and your behaviours. What is it? What will I see is what I tend to say to people. How will I see this? So imagine I'm an inspector and you say you're open, honest and transparent. And it's a lovely strap line. It's a lovely statement. How would I see that? How does that translate? If I ask your staff, what does that mean? What would they tell me? So just thinking about how we can put words into actions there. And training and education, and obviously upskilling is really important there. So implementing strategies, so ensure that leaders amplify the values. So again, we've already talked about that. Integrations and processes, so making sure that our values, missions and behaviours are integrated through everything, that we have those clear lines of communication and we have open lines of feedback mechanisms. And then our reviewing strategy then looks at how do we review the data that we have. So who's carrying out the regular reviews? Do you have a quality improvement leader? Are they celebrating success, looking at continuous improvement? Are they are they creating your quality improvement plan? So when you're reviewing something, and we've done the self-assessment, so the SAR, the self-assessment report, do we produce the quality improvement plan? Are we setting smart targets? Do we understand what that looks like? Are they embracing learning? Can you refine those strategies? Leadership and reflections. So looking at, does the leadership then carry out reflection? Do you do your own kind of CQC reporting, and then incorporate that feedback from other team members? So self-assessment, quality improvements, and the tools that you use are really important. And if you're a member of the United Care Network, you'll be able to click on quality and compliance on the drop-down list, and there you will see a whole array of quality auditing reports, frameworks and systems. And if we think about national and international frameworks, we'll be thinking about things like the ISO standards, because the ISO standards 9001 looks at quality assurance, and that looks at governance. It looks at how we implement, monitor, review. If we look at investors in people, plan, do, review for our staff. And a lot of what we're doing is about recruitment, retention and keeping staff. 1.5 is about modelling and promoting the values of the organisation and championing equality, diversity, inclusion and challenging that discrimination. So we need to look at how we lead by example there. And it's not the fact that you probably don't do it. It's the fact that you need to explain to me how you haven't got something. So, for example, when I was in London and I had my last CQC inspection, my CQC inspector said to me, Steve, I can see that you've got a really diverse workforce. Because I was in London, I naturally can have a diverse workforce, because my service, my staff were local from the community in which they were serving. So I had Bangladesh, I had Somalian, I had African, Nigerian, and I had some East Londoners. So great, that bit was done. Then he goes, your LGBT plus Q data, how's that? I kind of looked at him and was like, not so sure we're going to get that in East London. And he's like, so are you telling me there aren't any? I said, well, no, there are diverse staff that fit under that protected characteristic. I said, but we're an open organisation. And he said, well, prove it. How many staff do you have? I said, well, there's 2 that I know of. You know, and they've disclosed it. So I don't know about the undisclosed. So what are you doing to make those undisclosed disclosed? And I said, well, I don't really understand where this is going. And he's like, well, in your statement of purpose, does it talk about those protected characteristics and what you're doing to make it more inclusive? I said, well, I think we have a diversity policy. He said, but are you actively recruiting in that area? And I said, well, he said, it's not the case of saying we're looking for this stuff, but does your job ad show, when you open this up, when I look at this, does that say to me, oh, you're an inclusive organisation? I was a bit like, well, I think so, but then I may be biased. And he said, so 2% of 300, he said, you know, it's hardly a great statistic, is it? And I was just like, well, you know, by default, my answer was, but the demographics where I am in this part of East London, it's because the communities that we were serving, like I said, it has a very different culture, a very different feel to it. So a bit like if you're in one of the southern or northern parts of England, you may not have a massively diverse workforce around Somali communities or Bangladeshi communities or whatever it is that you're looking at. So he then said, so it's not the case that I think you're not doing it. It's the case that you need to demonstrate to me how you're promoting it. It's just like, right. Then what really annoyed me was the fact that afterwards I thought about it and I thought, well, gosh, that seems quite a difficult challenge. And I did a little bit of research and I looked at the area and I thought, well, hang on. So I think in where I was working, it was quite a condensed area. The last data for LGBT was like 1%. of the population. It was very, very small, because obviously where I was working. And then I thought, well, my team represented that 1%. So actually, I could have argued back and said, well, statistically, my team represents the community in which it serves, and here's the population. But because I hadn't prepared that data, I couldn't champion it. I couldn't. So you end up kind of closing in when you're challenged on stuff. And of course, the first thing you end up saying is, no, but we do that. But it is the language in which you're using. The inclusion isn't the case of saying we must achieve this utopia, because that's probably never going to happen. But what it does show is that we are inclusive. Our staff reflect our community reflects our staff. And, you know, typically health and social care attracts more females than males. So looking at how we can narrow some of that gap. So in our equality and diversity statement, you might say, well, look, our job ads and campaigns sometimes can look at stereotypes and trying to break down the barriers to even it up. And again, ages, we don't tend to have lots of young workers now. They're more 18 plus. So what can we do to get that younger generation through the door, you know, etc. So there are things that we can do around championing equality, diversity, and inclusion, and looking at celebrating diversity, looking at celebrating inclusion, looking at how staff can lead that. So parts of your activities, do you have a diversity calendar? Can you look at sharing some of that culture across the home? And one of the things that I used to love was my staff would bring in food and things that they would prepare, and you know, people would always offer me something, Steve, try this, and just trying people's culture is amazing. Just immersing yourself in it is a great way to share those values across the organisation, and to kind of promote. So it is about treating everyone with respect and fairness regardless of their background. Cultural sensitivity, you're never going to avoid it, because on many of occasions I've been accused of being racist, I've been accused of being homophobic, I've been accused of being ageist. And my belief, my values are true to me. I don't believe that I am any of those things. I believe that I treat everybody exactly the same regarding performance. And at the end of the day, regardless of your background, that shouldn't influence how I measure you or be afraid to measure you as an employee. We all have the same targets. We all have the same value, as it were, to the organisation. And my role in leadership is to ensure that I'm being fair with that value. Now, that's not to say, of course, that I wouldn't look at reasonable adjustments or safe and fair ways of working. That's not at all to say that I don't understand culture and cultural differences. However, if you have a protected characteristic, and then as a member of staff, you use that protected characteristic to then use that as an excuse for non-performance or for not achieving targets, then ultimately that then becomes a very different conversation. And I think what's happened over the years is it can be very intimidating as a manager and a leader when you are being threatened of being racist, homophobic, sexist, I can't even say it, but you know which one I mean, or ageist. And it's none of those things, because ultimately the first thing we as managers always say is, but I'm not any of those things, but you have to prove that you're not. And the way that you prove that you're not is by creating this culture of openness, this culture of fairness, and making sure that you don't set yourself any presidencies towards your staff. So what a presidency means is I don't treat somebody any less differently to another member of staff. And if you do make a reasonable adjustment, document it. Just say, we've put this person on night duties because health conditions, because of whatever it might be. But we're certainly treating everybody equally and fairly within the role. And sometimes what you might need to do as an organisation is then go to experts to ensure that you are not indirectly discriminating. And that one can be quite difficult as well when we talk about equality, inclusion and diversity, because you don't want to then have a policy that indirectly discriminates straight away off the back of it. So, for example, in East London, I had a lot of staff that would want Friday afternoon off for prayer. And it so happened that a friend of mine was just like, Steve, they're taking the mickey out of you. This isn't a requirement by religion. It's their choice that they do it. Part of their religious practices is the fact that they can pray at work on the grounds that. So then I had to go and speak to a couple of religious speakers. I spoke to a couple of leaders of churches and faiths groups. They then gave me the 101 on what is and isn't acceptable. And then, of course, when I sat down with the staff and explained the fact that I'd spoken to these leaders and this is what I was told, and it was very difficult. And then obviously I got one of the leaders in to speak to the staff, who then confirmed the fact that actually, employment comes first. You must be able to pay for your family, you must be able to pay for your home, you must be able to pay your church fees, etc., etc., etc. And therefore work must come as a priority over attending a place of worship. So we get bogged down with some of the fear around this, and sometimes the best way to overcome that is by to talk to and network with the groups to ensure that what you're doing is legal and fair and right. So just make sure that you have, if you have diverse workforce, if you have diverse service users, to meet their cultural and spiritual needs, just talk to the faith leaders, and they will give you a lot of insight. I've really enjoyed my time talking to lots of faith leaders. Language and communication. So inclusive language, respect of identity, gender, ethnicity, and diverse backgrounds. Encourage everyone to do the same. So the one thing that I listen for is the moment somebody goes, I'm not racist, but, and then I stop them there, okay, then, but don't do it. I want you to go away before you complete that sentence, and I want you to rethink how you're going to say this, because what you're basically trying to do is justify what you're about to say to make it sound like you're not racist. So the moment you say, I'm not racist, but, you are probably going to say something inappropriate. So it's really important as a leader that we ensure we don't allow conversations like that. Again, jokes, we don't allow sexist jokes, we don't allow racist jokes, we don't allow ageist jokes. And if somebody does say something inadvertently that they believe to be unharmful, but we believe it to be detrimental, we have a duty to discuss that with that member of staff, because ultimately, if that's their value and their belief, are they in the right place? So we need to look at how we manage that. So it goes back to those British values around tolerance, respect, mutual respect, etc. So just making sure that we are sensitive towards language. And when we use language in a way that promotes health and well-being, but not devalues it. So, for example, if we say somebody's suffering with an illness, are they suffering with an illness or are they living with that illness? Because the moment we use the word somebody's suffering, it implies that there is a lot of pain and discomfort, and it makes it a terrible thing for everyone else. If we say they're living with the condition, it sounds a bit nicer. You know, when we use our language, we don't say things like nappies and beakers and bibs, but we're actually using the correct terminology. So it's that kind of language that we should be using throughout. Fairness in treatment. So again, we talked about that just a second ago, about not setting those precedencies, ensuring opportunities are based on skill rather than anything else. Again, accessibility. So accessibility means everyone has the same opportunities to apply, attend, do, participate. I think that's important. Accessibility is important about inclusion around our activities that we do in the home. So if we've got 2 activities going on in that day and both are physical activities and not mentally stimulating ones, but both requiring the abilities of our hands or our legs, are we indirectly discriminating those that can't participate because of? And again, it can be quite a challenge, but it is the case of those reasonable adjustments. So let's, for example, if we have got activities going on that requires motor skills, can we adjust that in any way for it to be more of a cognitive skill rather than a motor skill? Or could we pair up? Could we say, look, here's an activity, Margaret, I want you to think about what you're doing. Bob, I want you to be able to do the task. And between the two of you, you can do the task together. So we're encouraging this joined up working, you know, using both abilities. So activities need to be meaningful. So just, are we doing that? Promoting equality, diversity, and inclusion, education, diverse hiring, your inclusive policies, resource allocations, and then inclusive team activities. And then challenging discrimination looks at those open discussions, addressing the biasness. So if you do have a workforce which is 90% women and 10% male, how are you going to address that? What does that look like? What's your action plan? How can you level that up a bit? And it may be the fact that you can't. You may say, Steve, we live in a country, a back-end country, which has got a community village where all of the men go to work and all that's left is a female workforce. Got ya. It's going to be difficult because there are parts of the country still like that. However, what we want is, what are you doing to address it? Rather than just accepting it and, well, but this is what it is. This is the demographic. What is it that you're actively doing to change that? You know, so have you got a job ad for more, you know, or are you making the job ad less accessible? Are you opening it up to explore a more male workforce? You know, what is it you're actively doing? So you're not just saying, look, we're looking for men, because then that would exclude others, but just saying, you know, care is for everyone, trying to break down those gender norms, I guess, there. Support, so, you know, making sure that support for victims is there, or people that have been discriminated or people that have been excluded against, offer resources and guidance, and then look at some conflict resolution, and then your feedback mechanism. So what is it you're going to do there? How do we feed back to the team? So we're now at the point where we need to prepare the assignments. So on your screen, you'll have a submit assignment in the top right-hand corner. So let's look at this. So you need to discuss the multifaceted dimensions of effective leadership and team management, encompassing various critical aspects of team development culture whilst addressing key learning outcomes, analyse and adapt to leadership styles according to different styles and cycles, and team evolution. And outlined in 1.1, you need to explore how leaders can tailor their approaches to meet the changing needs of dynamic, fast-growing workforce. At 1.2, you need to deliver the significant assumption of trust and accountability within the team. 1.3, you need to elect strategies that lead and can employ to build sustained teams. 1.4, you need to look at complex tasks of implementing and reviewing strategies for a positive value-based culture. 1.5, you need to, where you delivering to the role of leaders in promoting value-based behaviours, championing equality and diversity. So the essence, this essay undertakes the exploration of leadership, multifaceted dimensions, encapsulating ability, trust, accountability, commitment, culture and values. By skillfully addressing the learning outcomes, you will demonstrate a holistic understanding of the pivotal role that's played in shaping cohesive, inclusive and value-driven culture and workforce. So again, you're probably looking at about 100 words an outcome. So 50 words introduction. So the aim of this essay is to undertake a split. So this is your introduction. Hang on. So that's your introduction there. You've then got 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. So you can use those as mini headers. You're probably looking at about 100 words each of those. And then you're going to summarize. And when you summarize, you would then say, so within this essay, we have explored leadership and multifaceted dimensions. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, what we've also got then is the example. So it goes to show it can be done. That's the example in answering that question. Good. So moving on to 2.1, facilitate the participation of the teams and engaging in team objectives. So looking at participation of the teams, agreeing teams' objectives, we need to prepare and plan. So we need to clarify the purpose of the task. So what is it we're going to be doing? So looking at collaboration, the overall goal. We do that every morning, right, guys? We just need to get through today. Get through today, and then tomorrow's the same day, right? We just need to get through today. But the purpose would be, you know, maybe we've got 2 baths, we've got OT coming in, we've got the dentist coming in, we've got the doctors coming in. So to facilitate all of that, we've got 3 activities, we've got this going on. So all of the stuff that's going on is the goal. Let's talk about how we're going to achieve it. That inclusive approach recognises the diversity of your team members. So again, allowing them to contribute towards this generally is the best way forward. I've always found when I've tried to do shift management, it always falls on its backside. What I tend to do now when I do team handovers and stuff, so I go and I say to the team, right, you tell me, these are the goals. Who do you think would be the best for this and why? Just so I can understand. And sometimes you'll have the ones with all the voices and the opinions, and the quieter ones. So it is a skill to them to go to the quieter ones, going, you know, is there anything you'd like to add? So it's kind of facilitating those discussions. And equally, sometimes once you've sat back and you've watched it a bit, it may be the fact that you've got the more assertive people and the quieter ones just drifting. So bringing those drifters in and then giving some of those responsibilities. Or what I particularly like is when the staff go, oh, the new member of staff can do that person because they're really hard. And I would go, well, then that requires expertise, right? It doesn't require a brand new person. It requires somebody that knows how to handle that situation. So maybe we need to double up and maybe you need to show them how to manage that person more effectively. Gathering information, collecting relevant information, looking at the team's challenges and opportunities. Again, looking at the setting. Just making sure that you've got all of the information to make informed decisions and informed choice. And by having all that information, you can make an inclusive approach. So making sure that all team members are using their skills and experiences in the most appropriate way. We're not just doing it because the most experience works the fastest and the hardest, but we are sharing that, because all that happens is you burn out your workforce. You know, the solid member staff ends up always dealing with the most challenging people, and it's exhausting for them. They end up burning out, they end up leaving, and therefore, why would they? So it is this inclusive approach. Everyone gets an opportunity. Facilitating the process, so hold and collaborate meetings. We hold lots of meetings. We do handover meetings, we do midpoint stuff, we do care reviews, we do performance meetings, we do supervisions, we do appraisals, we do debriefs. So lots of meetings there. And then we do our monthly meetings, etc. So they're looking at brainstorming sessions. So gather the ideas from everybody without judgment. And again, I know team meetings can be difficult, but you can always stick some flip chart paper up, stick a pen on it, and just get people to write on it. It hasn't got to, you don't have to have a formal meeting. Just stick it in the staff room and get people to jot their ideas down. Prioritize the brainstorm with the team. So again, you could do like a balance sheet. You could once they've done their brainstorm, you could put those on separate cards and you could get them to put it in a priority order, how people see things should be done, and then set those SMART objectives, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. When we look at effective communication, we're looking at the transparency, the active listening, and the clarification, which is all straightforward stuff. And then building consensus, so encouraging those compromises. I love the training days where you've got two opposing sides and you have to put something in an order, but you're not allowed to leave until that group's agreed the same order. Because again, everybody sees things in a different way. So it allows them to understand why people think and feel the way they do. Seek those agreements, and then documenting and reviewing, summarize decisions made by your team and review them on a regular basis. So if you want to retain your staff and if you want to retain continuity within care and continuity within your workforce, you have to encourage creativity and innovation. If you cap it, if you go no, if you are something that closes things down, you are going to demotivate your staff quicker than allowing creativity and innovation. And the reality is, they very well could have a more creative way of doing something or a more innovative way of doing something because they're doing it every day. But equally, you may say no because you have a wider understanding of risk and consequence. And in the middle, we have positive risk taking. So where do we level up? If we're saying no to something, then we need to explain why and allow them an opportunity to think and reflect upon that. So let's look at creating a supportive environment. So open up lines of communication so people feel comfortable sharing their ideas without fear and criticism. It's that good old phrase, isn't it? There's no stupid ideas here. Let's just chuck them out. We can celebrate diversity, so recognize and value perspectives of different backgrounds and experiences. Because again, people may have come from a different home or a different workplace, but we did it differently there. Risk-taking, well, we have to encourage a culture where we take positive risks, because if we don't, we're never going to improve. You can't have a business of continual quality improvement if you're not prepared to take risk. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But positive risk-taking is part of what we do. Balanced approach. Fostering creativity and thinking. So again, in your team meetings, when we talk and we say, blah, 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 does somebody have any ideas? Everyone just sits and looks at you. Excuse me. Everyone just sits and looks at you. But what we could say is, right, look, here's a bit of flip chart paper. I want us to all put an idea on there. And, you know, give them a post-it note, get them to write an idea and slap it on the wall. And that could be around your visions, your values, your culture, ways of working, activities, food, diet, tasks, whatever it is, get them to do it. Staff benefits, what, you know, lots of ways that you can do that. Divergent thinking, so encourage divergent thinking where team members explore a variety of potential situations to encourage the best approach, and encourage questioning, so promote team members to ask questions. And if you've watched the speaking and listening functional skills, there are quite a few videos on questioning. It's about open questioning, about expanded questioning, about filtered questioning, because we want staff to grow, and they can only grow if we provide them the space to grow in. If we only give yes, no outcomes, they're never going to grow. Provide resources and support, so time to explore. I know that's a difficult one in social care, but again, that time to explore might just be, you know, once a month or in a team meeting or a bit of team training. Resource allocation, so looking at resources, and Resources is the one where I think we need to do a lot more work, because at the end of the day, we're not going to get more money. It's never going to happen. Nobody ever goes, I tell you what, Steve, I've been thinking about it and I'm going to increase your budget by 100k. It's never happened. It's never going to happen. What happens is this. Oh, Steve, the board of directors and I, we've had a meeting and you're going to have to shave off 20k off your budget this year. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. So you want me to do more for less? Okay. I'll see how that works. We've all been there, right? We've all been there. The staff don't understand it because, of course, they don't understand it because it's not in their world. Why do they need to understand it? But it's really important that part of open and transparency is this is a business, people. If we don't maintain a bottom line, if we don't maintain a profit, it's not sustainable. The business will close, job done. So what we need to be saying to staff is, look, guys, cost of living crisis, electric's gone up, gas has gone up, food bill's gone up. What hasn't gone up is the rate of pay. So where can we shave some money? How can we work smarter and not harder? What resources can we bring in? Right, activity coordinator. So you want money for activities, do you? Yeah. Well, what about making some stuff like the boxes that we get the fruit and veg in? Get some bean bags and they can do some bean bag throwing. Great for motor skill, great for direction, doesn't cost anything. Yeah, so we need money for training. Oh, that's going to be difficult. Fine. Let's look at the VLE. Let's look at what we can get online. Let's look at trainer modules. Let's train our staff up to deliver training. We'll save a huge amount of money there. So resources, we have the same resources as everybody. The country has a massive amount of resources. We just don't tap into it or network into it because it takes time. But I promise you this, once you've invested a bit of time, get your head around what have we got locally and nationally, what can help us, you'll be surprised. You know, did you know that the colleges are doing T-levels, and part of T-levels, people have to do like 80 odd hours work experience? Well, that could be activity coordinator, just doing some, you know, speaking or group work or reading or something. We could be taking people out. You know, there's lots of charities and organisations and lottery funding out there that we could use those resources. We could do some fundraising and maybe talk to the local church or something and explain the situation we're in and get them to buy in to help us out. We just need to be more innovative in the way that we manage our resources. Business, right? So business first. So that creativity, that innovation is what will help you flourish and grow. Because unfortunately, we are in a very difficult time in care and management. So everything's going up, but the prices are coming down for the cost of care. But they're not, they're actually spiraling, but who's going to pay for it, right? Lead by example. Also, training and development. So yeah, training and development, obviously, the only way that you can grow talent is by giving them an opportunity to learn. And one of the things that I did with my staff, because my staff couldn't see the value of training, couldn't see it at all. So what I did was I broke it down and said to them, right, in some organizations, you have to pay for your training, right? And they agree. They said, yeah, no, there are services out there that charge you for it. You know, there's some mandatory training that obviously by law you can't charge for. I said, but let's just break this down. So let's look at the care certificate induction. So let's just say that's cost us to deliver that £1,000. Your first aid certificate, £60. Your moving and handling certificate, £60. All of these certificates come in, and by the time you've done all your mandatory training, your induction, it's about £4,000 to £6,000 in. Like, yeah. Okay. We then push you through your MVQs. If we have to pay or contribute towards that, that could be another couple of grand. And if you do an MVQ, the taxpayer's paying for it, that's another 10,000. So by the time you've finished your training, all in, you're about £20,000 in. Question, do you have £20,000 sitting in your bank account right now that could pay for this training? No. Well, here's an idea. Let's change the culture and the thinking around this, that actually it is a value. It's paving your way for you to work smarter and not harder. It's paving the way for you to move up the ladder into roles of nursing, leadership, quality assurance, compliance, whatever it is that you want to do, education, training. This is just a stepping stone. You know, it would be ridiculous to think in today's world of the revolving door that you're going to keep a staff for more than 12 to 18 months in a particular role. People want progress and they want to see progress. But what I never see is the literature that shows the cost of education, because there is this assumption that to staff that it is free. And it's not, somebody is paying somewhere. And because we have this culture, it's free, they don't see the value of it. Oh, I should be paid to do this. Well, was you paid to go to school? I don't think so. Do you pay to go to university? Yes, you do. So you're getting university equivalent qualifications and experience, and you think everything, you don't see this as a benefit. So we just need to change the culture around that for people to see the value of it, if that makes sense. It's worth a rethink on that one. Leading by example, so modelling creativity, exactly, leading by example, demonstrate your own willingness to embrace new ideas, support them, share them, encourage collaboration, and then pilot them, you know. And when people, you know, when you pilot a new idea, give people the recognition that did it. My computer seems to off stuck. Give me a second. So as I was saying, 2.3 looks at the agreed roles, responsibilities, and personal work and objectives. So looking at individual skills, interest, knowledge, expertise, and developing upon them. So if we look at the skills undertaking individuals' attributes, we should be carrying out some kind of skills assessment. So some kind of self-reflection at all. That could be against your job description, it could be against certain criteria, but let's just do a skills assessment. And a part of that skills assessment will be you observing their practice to making sure that they're delivering care to the way that you want it delivered. Looking at people's interests, so if people have an interest in a particular subject and that passion comes through, you can help align that to motivate them more. So when we think about care champions, are you an end-of-life person? Are you a dementia person? Are you a mental health person? And let's make you an expert in that field. It just makes absolute common sense. Knowledge and expertise, so giving them that title, such as a care champion or a trained trainer within that field, you share the expertise across the organisation, and what you do is you reduce risk, because if one person has all that knowledge and they leave, you lose all of that knowledge and expertise. If you share that expertise across your whole organisation, then what happens is when somebody leaves, you're only replacing a block of knowledge, not a whole chunk of knowledge, if that makes sense. And development needs. Once you've done your skills analysis and you know your knowledge and expertise, you can do a gap analysis and identify where the gaps are within your organisation. You can then plug those up, and you can advertise. For example, let's say you've got nobody that doesn't do intellectual disability, for example. You could say, well, look, we're looking for an intellectual disability expert, and sometimes somebody may come forward and go, oh, do you know what? I've got a nephew or a niece or a cousin or somebody with intellectual disability. I'd like to know more about that. Because remember the phrase with them, what's in it for me, with them. If you can do a with them with your staff and understand what's in it for them, you can sell ideas to them.
Has anyone got a family member that they need to know extended stuff on? Great, look, here's a way forward. We're looking for an expert in this area. Does that work for you? Can we do a shared resource thing here? So aligning roles and responsibilities looks at matching skills, looks at individuals' preferences, but also you need to balance their workload. So looking at what they're already doing, we don't want to overburden them. This isn't about making your job more difficult. It is about empowering you to have more knowledge so you can work smarter and not harder. Setting personal goals. So obviously when we sit with staff, normally through supervisions or appraisals, we'll look at setting goals. We all know what SMART is, but I just want us to be sure that when we look at roles, responsibilities, interest, knowledge, and expertise, this is a performance review meeting, not a supervision. Supervisions are meant to be that they are meant to be able for a member of staff to offload their feelings and to be provided some space to be supervised in managing those feelings. It is not a space for you to sit there and go, you didn't do this right, you haven't done that right, That's a performance development meeting. And in a performance development meeting, we can go two ways. We can go, let's push you and stretch you and challenge you. This is the stuff we want you to do. Or indeed, it may be, look, we've got our milestones. I don't think we're achieving them. What can we do to achieve them more? Or what can we do to achieve them to help you? And again, addressing those skill gaps, put together in your development plan and look at providing opportunities for team members to be challenged. So very much what we were looking at about skills acquisitions and how we can do that. Encouraging the autonomy and accountability. The only way you are going to get a diverse workforce is by letting go of the strings and allow them the opportunity to flourish. If you hold back innovation, if you hold back growth, you basically end up with a situation where you can't retain staff. If you create an organization that allows opportunities to flourish and grow and innovation and creativity and positive risk taking, you will have a much more diverse workforce. So support team members to work towards personal team goals and objectives and monitor progress. So here we're looking at clear communicating, providing the resources and tools. That could be access to resources or access to training. Agree those goals, break down those objectives, regularly check in with your team to make sure that things are going well. They may be one-to-one meetings, they may be performance meetings, or indeed if you're seeing that they're slightly stressed, maybe a supervision. Empower them with the autonomy. So when somebody comes up to you and says, oh, I don't know how to do this, don't give them the answer. You know, I think empowerment and autonomy is, we go back to the metaphor about the man with the fishing rod. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You give him the rod, you feed him for life. When staff come up to me and go, I don't know how to do that, I tend to go, okay, well, what is it you'd like from me? Because I'm not going to give you the answer. If you come to me with an answer, say, look, Steve, I've been thinking about this. It's X, Y, Z. What do you think? I will absolutely meet you halfway and go, do you know what? That sounds a reasonable idea. Which one do you think is going to work better and why? Because it's my job to push innovation and creativity and problem solving. If I go, no, you're doing this, I have literally stripped that away from you and disempowered you. And I've enabled you to then rely on me. If that makes sense. My role is to promote your independence as a member of staff. So just like care work, I'm promoting your independence. So I'm literally going to say, okay, that's a really interesting point. Where did that come from? Why are you thinking that? So if somebody says to me, I don't know how to do something, the first thing I'm going to say to them is, you know, what is it you don't know how to do? And what do you think you need to do about that? And 9 out of 10 times they'll go, oh, I just need to do this, don't I? Yep, you do. Or, oh, maybe I should go and speak to. Or maybe I should read the. And the one that really grinds me is when someone goes, oh, I'm dealing with Margaret, I just don't know how to do this. And you're like, did you read a care plan? No. There we are. So if you can go read her care plan, you'll know what to do, right? And I get the fact that people are busy. The problem is,
use the metaphor of the lady in the wheelchair. If I keep putting you in that wheelchair, I'm going to de-skill you. I'm going to take away your muscles. You're not going to be using your legs for very long. If I keep giving you that frame and I keep encouraging you to go, we're going to maintain that, and your legs are going to get stronger and hopefully re-enable you back to walking. It's the same philosophy with staff. We've got to push them. We've got to promote that problem solving and critical thinking skills. Yeah, and I know it's a difficult time. I know it's a difficult time. I see it every time I walk into care homes. I see what care managers are dealing with, but let me kind of give you some reassurance. It hasn't really changed that much since 1995. The same problems that I saw when I first started care and nursing is the same things that's happening now. Nearly 30 years later, something like that. That's pretty scary. Quite a lot of years later. So yeah, it's important. Of course, it's important that we recognise that people do struggle to make decisions. But so it's down to us to teach them, because if we don't teach them, they're never going to learn. Which means delegating authority. Accountability, obviously having that bit to flexibility, recognising that circumstances might change. If you don't have a flexible working, you know, and I think I've learned this over the years as well, flexibility. I used to be, dare I say, a very fixed, I was task orientated. That's the phrase. I was task orientated because I'm the generation of a matron. And you're talking about a matron in the blue dress, puffy cough, colours, big nursing belt, the one that would put the fear of God into you. But she was lovely, absolutely lovely, but just knew how to say something that would make you think twice about what you were doing. So I guess I was very task orientated. So my first couple of roles in leadership, I did struggle with quite a lot because I couldn't understand the level of stupid that I was seeing. And the reason I probably didn't see it in my first role is because I was under a matron who had very high standards, and therefore you either met those standards or you were out the door. So there's nothing wrong with high standards. It does create a couple of problems with staff turnover. However, I did feel safe as a member of staff because I always thought, well, if I'm achieving this, everything's going to be fine. Then what was very clear to me when I left that home, and I was there for about 3 or 4 years. I started when I was 14, 15. And we were, back in the days, allowed to wash, dress. I mean, my first end-of-life experience was on my 16th Christmas. And I remember my matron going, can you come with me and we'll sort this lady out? So I went in, I thought, oh, I'll use my innovation. I'll be a bit foreplanning. I washed her, I dressed her, I changed the sheets, I did the single roll, and I did all of that. She came and she went, Stephen, have you got this lady ready? I said, yeah. Now, this lady, by the way, before you judge me, she was hard of hearing. She was always quite sleepy. She wasn't really responsive much. And she was only a tiny thing, really tiny thing. So in those days, you could just do a log roll, quite easily change the sheets and change her and wash her and do it all under a cover and no problems. She looked at me, she went, what do you think I meant by you and I? Not and I don't know. Don't know. You just asked me, and I thought I'd use my innovation. I thought I'd. She's passed away, Steve. I was like, I thought she was a bit quieter and a little bit stiffer than usual. And then it kind of hit me, and I kind of think I probably went a bit pale and chalky, more pale than I am at the moment. But I remember that, and ultimately, it goes to show that people use their innovation in the best will. They sometimes get it wrong, but it becomes a learning point for life. So yeah, this task-oriented care, I missed all of that because I was just so in the zone of getting the job done. Flexible thinking really allowed me to not be so judgmental, to break away from this whole routine thing. And I found it difficult to begin with. I did find it difficult to begin with. But then what I realised was I'm creating myself stomach ulcers and stress for no particular reason, because ultimately the job will get done. It just hasn't got done now. And it's creating that culture from top down that care is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So unless it's urgent patient care, then we can have a bit of flexibility. And again, flexibility about times when we do things. And, you know, even medication has therapeutic windows. It's, yes, we need to get the drugs administered in a certain time frame, but there is a window of tolerance either side. So there is this flexible thing. We just need to encourage that a lot more, so we're not all working under such a big pressure cooker. Adjustments of plans. So yeah, recognize when things are going well, when they're not, adjust them. Recognition and support. So just identify when that needs to be done, and then looking at technology and tools. If you're not watching them already, you should be watching my digital skills videos. Because again, the digital skills suite of stuff that I've done looks at how AI technology and technology can improve the way that we're working. Review teams' objectives and facilitate opportunities. So again, we should be regularly reviewing periods, we should be setting goals, we should be providing opportunities for reflection. And that can be structured reflection through meetings such as supervisions or appraisals, or indeed you could just be attending our weekly reflective meetings where we talk about lessons learned. And the individual should be going through some kind of reflection. So in your staff room, have you got a reflective poster that just gives staff the idea about thinking and reflecting? Promoting open dialogue, encourage honest feedback. Oh, I love honest feedback. Doesn't go down so well with some people, but again, as long as it is honest, we need to move to a world of resilience, people. We just can't run businesses on eggshells. If you are saying something and it is factually correct, you may not like what you're hearing, but if it's factually correct, then what is the problem with it? And if you struggle with honesty, then we need to look at resilience, because the reality is honesty is what pushes us and drives us to think more critically, to be more flexible, to grow quicker. You know, when we're standing on eggshells and we're sugarcoating something, so much so because we don't want to offend somebody or upset somebody's feelings, what we end up doing is diluting the message, and the message that you should have got isn't clear and concise. You know, for example, if you are late for work, I should be able to, as an employer, say, factually correct, Stephen, you are late for work. Shouldn't be a problem with that, because it's factually correct. You know, and yes, there may be reasons behind it. We can explore those reasons. But if you have been late for work 3 or 4 times, then that's factually correct. I should be able to say without hesitation, you have been late 3 or 4 times for work. Now, a good manager would then say, I can see a pattern developing here. Can you tell me what's going on? And it may be a bit of problem solving. It may be the fact that you find out, you know, they're a single parent, they've got problems with children, Great. Can we apply a bit of flexibility here? If this is a good member of staff, can we apply some reasonable adjustments, any flexibility to make this a bit better for them? Because why set them up to fail? If we can't, what can we do to help them? So is there some social prescribing that needs to happen? Do they need to go and speak to somebody in their own personal life? Let's help explore what's going on to why this person is doing what's happening. But as long as you're factually correct, I have no problem with honesty. And I think an honest feedback, a culture where honesty is where it should be, I personally would love, and that's a personal thing. I don't think it should all be sugar-coated, but some people find honest hard. But anyway, you should encourage it. That's what it said. Positive and contributive discussions. So obviously facilitate discussions. So if somebody's sitting there in front of you and you're doing all the talking, be mindful of that. Stop, pause and go, I wonder if there's anything you want to say. And if they go, no, then my next question is going to be, well, why isn't there anything you want to say? You know, there's no way you can be sitting here with me doing all the talking and you not thinking. So then open that question up to an exploratory question. So what's your thoughts about what I've just said? Oh, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, you'll understand if it's going over their head or if they're actually just, you know, lights on, no one at home, or are they actually taking it all in? Celebrate those achievements, acknowledge the milestones, apply that feedback process, and then demonstrate your progress and track it. So 2.6, provide constructive feedback on performance to individuals and teams. So feedback to individual team members should be regular feedback sessions. So on a one-to-one, supervision, appraisals, performance development meetings, whatever you want to call them. Specific examples of feedback could be examples of contribution, when you're trying to clarify something. You need to balance positive and areas for improvement. So please don't be one of those people that go, I can't grade you outstanding. No, I just can't, because there's always room for improvement. Then don't have the grade. Just don't have an unachievable outcome if you're never going to award it. Just don't. You know, because you can have outstanding staff, and if you don't acknowledge outstanding behaviour, then all you do is demotivate them. It has the absolute opposite effect for somebody going, but there's always room for improvement. Of course there's always room for improvement, but you can also recognise outstandingness and go, I just want to say, you are outstanding. Everything you do is brilliant. What do you think you could do to carry on this trajectory? What else can you do to improve this situation, or what more do you think can be done? And 9 out of 10 times, if a member of staff is outstanding, I guarantee they'll have a list a mile long. And if you sit there and you have to come up with a ridiculous, stupid outcome just to write something on a bit of paper, don't bother, because it just looks desperate. It looks desperate. If you have an outstanding member of staff, acknowledge that they're outstanding. You know what? I want to say you're an outstanding member of staff. You're always on time. You work to high standards. The staff love you. The customers love you. I love you. Everything's brilliant. Let's just carry on this road. Great. But if you had to go, oh, but there is this one little thing. Yeah, the other day when you made a cup of tea, you did spill a little bit. No. Let's be constructive with this. Let's be sensible with this. If you've got a scoring sheet, if you're able to do performance management reviews, if a 10 is on the page, then give a 10. If a 10 is where it needs to be. Don't sit there and make up rubbish criteria in your head. It's just ridiculous. I've never understood people that do it. And of course, areas for improvement do not then mean you haven't met the criteria. You could be stretching that outstanding criteria further. Good. It's my rant. Sorry. I see it all the time in supervision or performance review meetings. I see it all the time in annual appraisals. You've got this great member of staff and they walk out feeling flat. They've done an amazing job all year. They come and see you, and rather than walking away highly motivated, they walk away going, well, what's the point? If my best isn't good enough, there's no point giving any more. Okay, so balance the positives and negative improvements. Yeah, balance it. Good. But if there are none, acknowledge it. Just say, you know, and sometimes when I give feedback, that I give to students, I have written. It's very rare that I'm speechless, but I'm speechless. And it's a high praise. It's a high praise. And equally, talking about praise and feedback, be mindful with the language that you use and that you don't dilute it down. So, for example, if you say something is good, then that becomes the benchmark for good. If you say something is excellent, then that becomes the benchmark for excellent. But if you say something's outstanding, that is the benchmark for outstanding. Now, my thing that I want you to think about here is, have you watched Strictly Come Dancing? Probably. If not, watch it. And what I want you to do is I want you to watch the judges' feedback. Because what I don't understand is this. They will turn around and go, oh, that's the best that I've ever seen. You've danced like I've never seen it before. Like, it was breathtaking. And they give 7. I beg your pardon. If it's the best you've ever seen, how is that not a 10? It's the best you've ever seen. So surely, by definition of your feedback, and that grade should tally up. And then what happens is the next dancer comes along, they do an average dance, and they go, oh, it was a good attempt. Yeah, I just felt, foot wasn't right, or you didn't fleckle in the right way, or you didn't stretch that leg out. And then they get an 8. And you're like, so the one before, who was the best you've ever seen, gets a 7. And the one with all these areas for improvements gets an 8. I know I'm overanalyzing. I know, it's one of my weaknesses. My psychiatrist says that as well, so don't worry about it. It's just, beyond me. Have consistency, because all that happens is you end up with a grading system or a performance management system which becomes senseless. So again, if you have employee of the month, if you have have a criteria that people can see, that it's transparent and people can work towards or strive towards it. If it's a criteria that people are unable to achieve, they're not going to participate. They're going to go, what is the point of me doing that? It's unattainable. They're not going to do it. Right, so looking at feedback to teams. So team meetings, great. Love team meetings. I can't tell you how many of those I've attended in my life, got to the end of it and gone, not an idea at all what that was about. And I've sat in some team meetings for 2 or 3 hours, got to the end and gone, looked at my colleagues and gone, what, is that it? Are we done? Is it over? No idea. No idea. No idea at all. So if you're going to do team meetings, just think about it. Set a very clear objective. Guys, today we're here to do X, Y, Z. We've got 3 key points to cover. And at the end of that team meeting, have we covered those 3 points? Bomb, bomb, bomb. Good. Steve, we agreed you're going to be responsible for that. Bob, you're going to be responsible for that. Mary, you're going to be responsible for that. Do we all agree that? Are we going to do that for next time? Set your agenda, have your meeting, summarise it, create your action plan, and then close your meeting. Make it have purpose. Have purpose. Keep it nice and concise. Don't let things waffle on too long. Time manage your team meetings. Nobody wants a meeting that overruns, because I guarantee you this. If you say your meeting finishes at 4, at 4 o'clock, mentally everyone checks out. And I know they do, because you do. You've sat in those meetings, haven't you, that have overrun? At that time, you've looked at your clock going, oh my God, it's due to finish now, and they're still going, I haven't even wrapped up. And you're sitting there going, the next person that says something, I'm going to lynch them. And you just know, Bob is going to go, I just need to talk about overtime. And everyone goes, oh, and off we go again. So let's try and avoid all that stuff. If we're going to have team meetings, make sure they're concise, make sure they have purpose. Because if they have purpose, if they have performance, if they have milestones, if people can achieve them, and again, all you want to be doing is giving feedback from your previous meetings. So in the last meeting, Steve, we said you were going to do this. Can I just thank you? That was a sterling job that you did. Can we tick that off and agree that that's been done? It's a great way to praise the team, praise the individuals, and show that the system's working. Okay, constructive critique. So again, it is about growth. So sometimes we can do lessons learned. We can just say, right, let's have a look at this. What went well, what didn't go so well. So it's not about blame. I don't want names. This is nothing to do with names or blame. I want us to look at systems. What went well, what didn't go well. Look at collaboration and reflection. So lessons learned. And then obviously looking at recognizing and motivating. So celebrating team's accomplishments. But as I say to my team, we rise as a team and we fall as a team. So when we have our CQC, we rise as a team and we fall as a team. Because it's shared ownership. And, you know, there's no I in team, is there? Top tips then for collaborating, effective feedback, be specific. Just be very specific. Just don't be vague, straight to the point. Let's bang confusion on the head. Focus on behavior. You know, make judgments based on sensible. Be timely. Just agree those times. Because again, if we can't manage time effectively, then we give the message to our team, but it's okay to be ineffective. It's okay to overrun. It's okay to not do this, because that's the message we're sending by our behavior. Balance positive and negative. So again, just keep an eye on that. Encourage self-reflection. So why do we think this worked well? What did we do to participate? What didn't we do to participate? Set clear expectations. So by X, Y, Z. And then acknowledge efforts. So track those milestones. 2.7 works as a team to address issues and performance to identify continuing development. So by identifying continuing development, obviously open lines of communication, identify performance gaps. We've already talked about root cause analysis. So if we're looking at things that don't work, so if somebody isn't performing, if something isn't going right, if something is always a car crash, do your root cause analysis. And your root cause analysis is simple. Why? Ask why 7 times, you will get to the root cause. So go back to the memory start that's being made. Right, Steve, so you were late today. Can I ask why was you late? Oh, I missed the bus. Sounds a sensible reason to be late. No, that's not a reason to be late. Why did you miss the bus? I'm sure the bus arrives at the same time. Oh, I got up late. Okay, well, why did you get up late? I didn't set my alarm clock. Okay, so you were in a hurry last night, you didn't set your alarm clock. Why did you forget to set your alarm clock? Oh, I had a long day and I forgot to do it. Okay, so why did you forget to do it? Oh, I just forgot. Right, okay, so we've now run out of whys. So basically, the problem is you forgot to set your alarm clock. That then caused the spiral effect. So here's the thing. In your phone, can you not just set up a weekly reminder? Because all phones do that. Let's problem solve this. You know, at the end of the day, don't set the clock the day before, set a set of reminders. So if you are in that situation again, you don't end up in that position again. So lessons learned. You know, it's, and then what you might be is, oh, they might go, oh, I was late home, I was studying. Okay, right. So you're at night school. So maybe what we shouldn't be doing is from your night school is then putting you on an early. So if this is the day that you study, let's not do an early shift the next day, let's move it around. So it may be the fact that we can do reasonable adjustments. But actually, what poor management is going, Steve, you were late today. Next day, Steve, you were late today. Next day, Steve, you were late today. We can do some root cause analysis, draw down, find out why. For example, let's just say, okay, Steve, you went into that room and I noticed you didn't make the bed and you left the pad on the bed. And that's why, oh, I was just so busy. I was just so busy. trying to get Mary to the bar, to the lounge to get her medication and a cup of tea, and it slipped my mind. Okay, well, that happens. Let's just keep an eye on that one. Happens again. Steve, I noticed it happened again. Why? What's going on? I go, I'm just so busy. Blah, 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 blah. I'm really busy. Blah, blah, blah. So is there a bit of a focus thing going on here? A little bit of a memory, cognitive thing going on here? Is this person quite flighty? Do they talk quite a lot? Have they got a lot of ideas? Are they normally quite loud and bubbly? If they are, maybe there's an undiagnosed neurodivergent going on here. Maybe they've got undiagnosed ADHD. Just so busy. Next task, next task, next task. La, 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 la. And actually, it's very easy to make mistakes because they're so busy. Doesn't mean they're a dreadful person. Doesn't mean they've done it on purpose. It's just part of their cognitive processing. So maybe we should just have a little chat about that. Okay, so you bring Steve in, we have a little chat. So let's see, 2 or 3 times I've noticed, you are quite quick. You do make little mistakes, which we all do, but what is it we can do to help to kind of reinforce some of this stuff? And it may be the fact that once somebody, if you know that member of staff is really good and they bring that person in, just a little reminder, Steve, don't forget to go and tidy up the room. Steve, don't forget to go back. Or maybe they just need a reminder, for them. So some kind of activity or task that just says, look, don't forget to do this. Because I guarantee 9 out of 10 times staff don't do it on purpose. They do it because their brain is so busy about what they're doing now, focusing on the next person, and they forget to do some of the tasks that they were meant to be doing in the present. And that's not true. It's not a good thing. It's not a terrible thing. It just means we need to look at, as an employer, how do we manage that? Because we want them to feel safe and be safe. The root cause analysis, though, may be undiagnosed ADHD. Who knows? It may be they've got a lot going on in their personal life, so their mind isn't there. So it may be the case that if we see somebody speeding through things, whilst it's tempting to let them keep working at that speed, it might be the case that what we need to do is say, look, Steve, I see that you're really busy today. Can we just take 2 minutes, just do a bit of mindfulness with you? Just take some breaths, slow your cognition down a bit, breathe in and out, and let your brain stop for a second. And let's get back to it. And actually, they may very well appreciate that. So just think about your staff. Those that are highly functioning, those that are running around like proper loony flies, guarantee there's some problem neurodivergent there that's keeping them nice and hyper and active, buzzing around. Just part of their personality, part of who they are. But there's ways of managing that. Because the problem with neurodivergent people, if you give them a negative comment, you can take somebody who's highly motivated to highly distressed like that. And then you lose all your productivity. Then you lose all of that work that they were doing. They lose the enjoyment and they go, bollocks, what's the point? I'm going to leave. So, knowing if your staff potentially have ADHD or a neurodivergent is really useful, because you can use their high energy, their high motivation, their high enthusiasm. And if you cultivate that correctly, you can keep that going. But equally, when you see them drop, be mindful that their emotional intelligence isn't the fact that they're being objective, horrible, nasty. It's just their brain has gone splat and they need support from you to pick them back up. And trust me, a 5-minute conversation to show me that they're valued and feel, that they're doing a great job will save you hours and hours and hours and hours and hours down the line dealing with a meltdown. Great. So look at the problem solving. We did that. Look at development plans, check in with them regularly. So again, that checking could just be, look, I've watched you today, Steve. I think you've done, you've worked your little socks off. I just want you to sit down with me for 2 minutes, grab a glass of water, let's just sit down and let's just do some breathing exercises. Let's just do some mindfulness. Let's just do whatever it is. Because ultimately, everybody just needs to be held at some point, just to feel felt and heard and valued. Acknowledge obviously what's going well, highlight growth, and recognise the effort. So lots of things that we could be doing there to motivate and develop our staff. 2.8 recognises progress towards teams and personal objectives. So the only way that you can recognise that is if you're checking regularly. So our goals been achieved. I've never understood leadership. I've never understood managers that have gone, oh, you've missed the deadline. Oh, we haven't done it. How did you not know this? How did you not know that that deadline was going to be missed? Surely the whole point of leadership or management is that you are managing that situation. It should never get to the deadline to be missed, because your role as a leader or a manager is to ensure your team meets it. Well, if you're not checking in, then how will you ever be able to manage that goal? You as a manager, as a team leader, should be going, right, it's 10 o'clock, we're a little bit behind target, or it's 10 o'clock, we're above target. Great, it's lunchtime, we're all caught up, we're not caught up. 1 o'clock, we're behind, we're in front. If we're behind, what can we do? If we're in front, let's reward and recognise. Let's do some activities to slow it all down a bit. We don't want people overperforming, but equally we can't be underperforming. And it's this balancing act. And if people are working their little socks off, then we need to recognise that and reward that. Because there has to be some recognition for working your little socks off, right? And please don't be worried, people, they get paid to do it. Yes, they do get paid to do it, but people also want to be treated as people. People want to have that emotional connection. People want to feel valued. People want to feel heard. So if we hear them and we value them, then we can promote that culture a lot better. So don't be a manager that gets to the end of the day and then blames everybody, because the only person that there is to blame is you. You didn't manage your team properly in that day. You didn't lead effectively. That's your reflective point, nobody else's. Nobody else is to blame. If you are the leader on that shift and it all goes horribly wrong, it's down to your leadership and management. Reflect on it. Look at what you could have done differently. Look at how you should have spotted it a lot sooner. Because early intervention allows you time to manage situations. If you haven't been watching that throughout the day and then you get to the end of the day and things aren't done, that's down to you. That's down to you to say, well, okay, look, maybe what we need to do is not have so many people washed and ready for bed, but make sure that the environment's clean, that everything's put away, that the kitchen's tidy, that the medication rounds are done, and that all of these other jobs that are really important are done. And as the leader, I'm going to have to make a decision what becomes more important. Because if you can't achieve everything, you can't achieve everything. So rather than trying to achieve everything badly, let's achieve some stuff at 100% and just leave one job undone and just say, look, I'm really sorry, we've managed to do everything else bar this one task. So look at what you can sacrifice. So it's not important, something that maybe could roll over, he says. Okay, look at public recognition, great. Again, public recognition, sometimes it's brilliant, sometimes it can backfire. If the same people are getting recognised and others aren't, it becomes demotivating. Oh, you just favouritism, it's this, it's that, it's that. Excuse me. It's probably not. It's just about that person is working harder and smarter and performing well. But just be mindful how the other stuff may feel about that. Personalised approaches, so making sure it's tailored, personal messages. The one thing my matron always did at the end of the shift or before she went home, she would go around, tap everyone on the shoulder, just go, thank you for your work that you've done today. Or she would say, I'm really sorry, I haven't had an opportunity to see you today.
but thank you, you know, it's very much appreciated, and that appreciation goes a long way. So just thinking about how you do that. And again, with modern technology now as a manager, you can push messages from your phone or whatever. Tangible certificates, awards, gifts, tokens, you know, a gift literally could be a packet of sweets. It's not the size of the gift, it's the receiving of it. In my last organisation, we made badges, tiny little badges that you could have in your lanyard. And they were just things like, you know, mental health champion or mental health first aider, care certificate completed, whatever it was. Staff loved it. You know, oh, can I get my next badge? Of course you can. So just, you know, and we think McDonald's do it, don't they? They have their badges with all their service pins, and they get a little pin for each time they achieve something. You know, and the goal is you want that filled up as quickly as possible. You know, that's why we have badges for great recognition. Share the success. So again, have those walls, look at the values, look at opportunities for growth. And then obviously public achievements. So just look at how you can recognise that as well. Good. So to summarise that second learning outcome, it's another 500, oh no, probably about 800 words, this one, or 900 words. Again, think about 50 word intro, 50 words conclusion, and 100 words of learning. So it's not a lot really. So explore the landscape for effective leadership and management by delving into various critical aspects of facilitated team performance, development and recognition, whilst addressing key learning outcomes. In this comprehensive evaluation, navigate through fostering high-performance team environments and promoting culture, innovation and growth. So here you've got your 8 learning outcomes. So undercover strategies for fostering collaboration, work where you so explore techniques for encouraging team members outside the box, contribute to fresh ideas, look at customizing and optimizing team members' contributions. You need to look at dynamics, work towards objectives. You need to unveil the art of rewards and objectives. Immerse yourself in providing constructive feedback. Where you delve into a collaborative journey, address the performance issues, and as you reflect upon the importance of launching progress with teams. It's in this essay, you'll navigate through the multifaceted tapestry of team leadership and management, encompassing engagement, creativity, alignment, support, reflection, feedback, and development, and recognition. By addressing each of the outcomes, you'll have an in-depth or a deep or a depth and insight, I should say, to showcase your comprehensive understanding of roles and responsibilities for leadership. Again, you'll have the example essay, so there's the example one. So you don't have to write much to cover the outcome, as long as you've covered the outcome. And then there is your reading list for the end of the unit. So extended reading there and some websites to help with your extended reading. And then we will move on next week to the next unit. And the next unit looks at resource management. So resource management in adult care. Okay, lovely. Well, hopefully you found that useful. Apologies if I went into Steve rant mode at points, but it's an emotive subject. I feel quite strongly about the way we treat our staff. We look at recruitment and retention. We look at how complicated it is, how expensive it is to recruit a member of staff. And we look at the impact on poor leadership. So the impact on continuity of care. And it all goes down to the same thing in all of the exit interviews, in all of the interview stuff. It's not about how much we pay our staff. Tiny proportion is that, of course. It is about how they're valued, how they're heard, how they're led, how they're motivated, and if they enjoy the environment. And if we can get that right, you'll keep your staff for longer, I promise you. Anyway, I wish you all the best of luck.
I'll look forward to reading your assignments, and I will see you in the next unit. Take care. Bye for now.